Welcome back. We're live streaming here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a really special guest on the show today. He was a good rider. He was a motocrosser, a supercross rider, and a factory team Honda rider. This guy, I used to always hear his name. Larry Motormouth Huffman always announced his name because he was good. And he was always towards the front of the pack. I mean, this guy was really hot. I mean, a good rider. And today we want to go ahead and welcome this very special rider. His name is Warren Reid. Warren, how are you doing?
I feel really special now. Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, this is an honor for me to have you because you're not that much older than me, but I used to always read about you on Cycle News and then also Larry Huffman and I used to watch you race the Supercross races and Saddleback and oh my gosh. So we're going to talk about that, but what are you doing nowadays, Warren? What's happening in Warren Reid's life?
Well, I retired from Honda after 30 years this past July, so I'm now retired. I worked for Honda for the power equipment division since 1990, and I really enjoyed working for Honda. They're a good company, and the power equipment division was more actually aligned with what the kind of my family did, and which was construction. So the power equipment division, they make generators and water pumps and basically tools and things, which I was always on the technical side anyway. And it was natural for me because after racing career was over, I had a cabinet contracting business. And anyway, I ended up doing a lot of projects for a lot of the motorcycle companies for their race teams or for their rep vehicles for Yamaha, for Kawasaki, Honda. And I ended up deciding I was tired of Southern California and Orange County and the crazy lifestyle. And so I applied for a job at Honda and packed up my wife and my three kids, and we moved back east. And we've all been back east for just a little over 30 years now. So.
Wow. Nobody knows that. They think since you were like an Orange County boy, they think maybe were there all your life, but that's not true.
Yeah, no. In fact, for the first 17 years after moving back east, I lived in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, home of the Little League World Series. And so we lived there. The kids grew up there. And then my oldest son, Jarrett, came back to Orange County a little bit and did some schooling and stuff there. But now he's back in Georgia now. The Williamsport was a great place to raise the kids. It was a very nice town in Pennsylvania, very friendly people, small town atmosphere, but it was a big enough town that there was plenty of things for all of us to do. Lots of motorcycle people there, that a lot of friends that I made motorcycle riding and mountain biking there. And then, and just because it was a pretty probably the most sophisticated small town that I've ever been to in my life. And it was actually, when I first moved to Pennsylvania, people go, "Oh, well, was that like culture shock?" And I said, "No, it was lack of culture shock." And I was joking, but and at first I thought that until I realized that small little town had a completely different culture than Orange County, which there can't be two more different cultures than Williamsport and Orange County. But the culture there, I mean, they had a symphony orchestra, and they had all kinds of plays and independent movies and stuff, and two colleges within a couple of miles and two hospitals within a couple of miles, and a very old history. And then right in the outskirts of town were lots of motorcycle people and mountain bike people and sports and hunting and everything. It really was a cool place to raise the kids. And for me, I was a rep for Honda at that time, and I covered New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and all of New England at various points. But that was very centrally located for a lot of the area that I had to drive through. But whenever I came home from being on the road, the last hour or so was driving through the countryside. And before I got home to my small little town, you go out to dinner and you'd always see somebody you knew, parents of the kids that your kids went to school with, or their friends, or they played soccer with, or in little plays or little league and things. And every year the kids would go to the big Little League World Series games and slide down the hill behind the outfield, just like you see every year.
It's beautiful. Beautiful there.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
And one year, my daughter and her two friends, they had a trio, a singing trio, and they sang the national anthem for the championship game for the Little League World Series one day, right before George Brett and Kevin Costner came out onto the field. They finished Brave, and then here comes Kevin Costner and George Brett out onto the fields.
Very cool. That place is gorgeous. And your daughter was involved in doing that national anthem, and I mean, that's fun. I watch that almost every year when I can see it. I watch it on Channel 7, it was, I guess, Wide Sports or whatever, the championship game, but also I watch all week. And I used to be a coach of baseball, and I used to always dream of going there as a coach. And that place is gorgeous. Williamsport, Pennsylvania seems like a really great place to raise your family. It's a beautiful place, all the woods and trees, and that's gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, my middle son, he, some other friends of ours did, fly fishing and stuff. And so he would go do that. And then, like you say, you could ride, my good friend Bob Logue, he owned the Honda shop and in Williamsport, and he and I became great friends. And he knows a lot of historical people in motorcycling and things like that. And in fact, he had his own museum. He had 200 classic motorcycles, that were all restored. And he sold off, I think he sold off 2/3 of them to a collector in England, but he still kept a lot of classic Hondas, things that you'd never, a Honda snowmobile, things like that. And he's having his ice race on his pond this weekend up in Pennsylvania, and I'm here in Georgia. So anyway, yeah. A lot of beer, awesome. A lot of sausage, a lot of standing around the bonfire while the people are racing around their little pond on the ice, on speedway bikes, on four-wheelers, on, CR250s made into dirt. I call them dirt trackers, into ice racers, with studded tires and stuff. And anyway, yeah, we really enjoyed it. And then, and I enjoyed repping for Honda. I was a service rep for, for 9 years, I guess. And then I was in sales for 9 years. And then the rest of the time was working in the office in management. That's 13 years ago. I moved down to the home office in Georgia. So, but being a rep, I covered a lot of areas. Got to, go to the, all of New Jersey, all of New England and upstate New York, and, into the Catskills and the Adirondacks and the Finger Lakes and down into Maryland and Chesapeake Bay. And, I got to meet lots of really nice people and work with lots of nice people and make Honda, as strong of a company as I could make it with our dealers and our customers. And, it was good and get, to be around the oldest part of our country, the Northeast. So, the roots of our democracy, Philadelphia, Boston and DC, all those were in my district. So a lot of history.
Oh, that's great. Good. So like, how were you when you started riding motorcycles? When you were like a kid, were you like a normal like kid getting a mini bike and then learning to ride, or did you just race? Or what was your history when you were young?
Yeah. Well, the first Stingray that ever came along, once one kid got one, every kid had to have them. And then I don't remember why we started racing each other, but we all did. And then we all figured out that there was motorcycle races. And then, one kid got a mini bike, a guy named Mike Lindell. And anybody in America that's listening to this, they see the My Pillow commercials, on TV 100 times a day. And the guy that owns the company is named Mike Lindell. That's not the guy that got, that lived on the next street that got the first mini bike that we all remember, but shares the same name with a famous, product guy here in the States called My Pillow. Anyway, but he had a mini bike, and then some of the other kids got him, and we all kind of salivated, and then then my dad got a mini bike for me, and my parents split up, and then the mini bike, I don't know what happened in the divorce, but I think we got it, and then something happened to it. I don't remember, but it disappeared, and then I started saving money for a mini bike, and my dad told me if I saved half, he'd pay for half, and so that was when I was probably, I think I first started riding mini bikes at about 10, and Stingrays were all the time, every day you'd ride Stingrays. And then when I was about 10 or 11, I started saving up for a bike. And then when I was 12, I finally got enough for half, and my dad paid the other half. And I got a Yamaha Mini Enduro, a JT160, which was the first mini cycle that the Japanese companies made. And that bike was really good. It was a 4-speed transmission, and it had a real clutch, and a real front brake and a real back brake. So that started the ball rolling. That's all I thought about from 11 years old on, was racing motorcycles. That's all I thought about.
What color was your Mini Enduro? What was the color of that one?
It was, they had one color the first year, and it was red with white stripes on the tank and on the side panels, and then the fenders were white with a red stripe. And that was the first year Yamaha Mini Enduro. So
I had the second year Mini Enduro. That was my first bike. I had the yellow and black, the bumblebee color. Yeah. The bumblebee color. Yeah. You see that color?
Yeah, there you go.
One, the bumblebee. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. I was gonna say that when you brought it up. Yeah, the next year they were yellow, but
that was the year, right?
Well, our family started riding a lot. My mom. And then she met, some people we knew, and then people in our neighborhood would ride, and then just lots of groups would form. People would go camping and ride in the desert, and we'd ride up at our cabin in the mountains. And it was a great for my brother and I were so lucky that our mom got involved in motorcycles and didn't try to shy us away or not get involved just because we liked it. But she got involved, and she got a dirt bike, and she met nice people that rode, and then we would all ride together and camp together, and everybody, it was kind of like almost like a little a weekend commune for dirt bikes, and a lot of really amazing people came through that group over the years, and in relationship to Speedway, the most prominent person to come through that group was Sammy Tanner, was one of our oldest family friends. We knew him from watching dirt track races, and he became part of our weekend riding group. And, he was one of the early guys on Speedway, when it first started getting introduced. I don't know if he did it full time, but he's always at the Speedway races, with he's an Arai helmet distributor. So.
We got to get Sammy on this show. We got to get Sammy on the show.
You got to have him. His history goes back. I've seen results from him to late 50s. And so, you're talking about a guy that could come on who's still all there, that raced races in the 50s, and could come on and tell you about every fast guy that ever came down for decades and decades and decades. And raced him. He raced and beat everybody at one time or another. He beat everybody. So
Sammy Tanner was the legend of all legends of early days.
Yeah. So he, but that, and then racing grew, and a good friend of ours from the racing group, the Dennis and Wendy Blanton. Dennis worked for Honda, and he worked with John R., who is he introduced John R to my mom, and they got married. So John R was my stepdad. He was one of the factory mechanics, and still is, and he's legendary in motorcycle racing as one of the top tuners of all time. He's won many gold wrench awards for his riders winning national championships. He's built a suspension after he was done with his own mechanical days for a lot of Supercross and national and road race champions, and just an amazing guys. So it was good for me is when my mom remarried, was the time that I started racing motocross and started having some success, and so my stepdad was very, when you can completely relate to a stepdad, that doesn't happen in a lot of marriages with kids, right? And so we were pretty lucky, and he was just a straight up guy, and he loved our mother, and he took care, and he didn't try to control two crazy teenage boys. Me and my brother, we were nuts.
So,
like,
you guys
we were nuts. Yeah. It was 100% crazy 100% of the time. But
wow.
he's a guy, and he just looked the other way, and unless it was something that was going to wreck something or hurt somebody, he just kind of kept his mouth shut and just let us be idiots. and we gradually came around to the right way of doing it, and plus we had a good foundation with our father too, Bud Reid, and we were close with our dad, and he was a solid guy too, but that's the struggles lots of families have gone through, I think, with divorces and remarriages, and brothers and sisters and parents and everything, and it worked out very well for everybody. And I'm as close with my stepsisters as I am with my brother, and that a lot of families, I don't think, can say that, but that's a testament, I think, to my parents and both of my step parents over the years, and he was supportive of me. So it was good.
Awesome. So you're a rowdy dude. You're a troublemaker like most of us. So that's good to hear. I would keep off the show if you want.
I was lucky. I never got arrested. Not that I didn't break any laws, but nothing that wouldn't have been a misdemeanor or something. I never committed any felonies. So anyway.
See, that's what I like about this show is I get to bring all these rowdy guys, all these sort of like troublemakers. We're going to have Bruce Penhall on. He was a troublemaker, and all these guys like yourself and me, we're all troublemakers when we were kids. So I like that one.
It's but it's something that I always said, it's a lot easier to throttle back somebody that is going every direction than it is to take somebody that only goes in one direction to get them to think outside the lane. They're in their lane.
Yeah.
You're not going to move. If you get a guy that's bouncing off the curves, from both sides of the road, and you can kind of channel that, you got something. And so that
you can hold them.
Yeah, for people running corporations, the people that graduate the top of their class, they're going to work for somebody. Okay, the people that are wide open, 1,000,000 miles an hour, they don't see the need to be the top of the class, but they're picking up all the things they knew to be successful. They'll employ the top of the class guys. So, and that's one thing that all motorcycle racing in my life that I've seen, I don't care what kind of motorcycle racing it is, but it brought out the kind of people that by and large aren't necessarily college guys, but if they are, they're not the top of the class guys, but they're the entrepreneurial spirit. They're all sharp. They're very sharp. Then they know the most important part of business is you add up what you made, you subtract what you spent, and that better be on the correct side every day, or you're not doing it right. You don't need an MBA to figure that out. And if it's, if that's not happening, you get to the bottom of it. But the top of the line, the top of the class guys, the other guys that fill out the spreadsheets, okay, and the guy that makes runs thing, he reads the spreadsheets. He doesn't create the spreadsheets. Spreadsheet people are just it's great. It's a great skill, but they're just administrators. Somebody has to make a decision on that information. So, and motorcycle
I
people,
never thought
whether
about
they're
that.
mechanics or the racers, it doesn't matter. They're all the same. They're all cut from the same cloth. And more than any other
I've
sport I've
noticed
ever seen. Yeah.
That's why I like all you guys, because you guys are all like, you have this like spirit about you, and we all do. We want to win races, we want to succeed, we're fighters, we're gladiators, we get hurt, we bounce up and we fight, and that's a good character. You can't buy that kind of character, and that's what the motorcycle racers, whether it's motocross, speedway, whatever, we're all like competitors, we're all fighters, and we all have that spirit that's really, you can't buy that spirit.
And that's where motorcycle racing is so different than just about any other sport, because in almost every other sport you always have time to relax and contemplate a strategy. In football you have breaks between every play, halftime, quarters, flip, in baseball, you're sitting on the bench watching somebody else play. Soccer, the ball's at the other end of the field. They're all, they're great sports and everything. But motocross, you have to be, going 100% of the time, the whole time. Speedway, you have to be going 100% the whole time. Road race, all of them. Even the Dakar racing. You can't be going 100% wide open all the time, or you're going to die. But you have to concentrate when you're going 100 miles an hour, like other people can't imagine. And my point with that is that it's the ability to evaluate, assess, and execute something correctly, quickly. You don't need fast reactions. You need quick, correct reactions. You have to react correctly.
Decision fast. You need to make that decision in a second, like boom, boom. You don't have an hour or a minute. You have to do it within a half a second. Boom. It's quick.
You made the decision, execute. Right? And so it's not how fast your reactions are; it's how correct your reactions are. And that's part of that mentality. And that's why those guys. Those guys have a brain that's just going that fast all the time. And when you're sitting in class, you're going insane because you're already working on all these other things and thinking, and you're looking at the window and going, why is that window open this wide, and why aren't all the other windows open? And who's going to go fix that, because it's not even amount of air coming in that. They're all OCD of some form or another, or hyperactive, or some unusual. Even the people that appear calm and quiet, their brain is we all know quiet guys, right? And they put their leg over the motorcycle, and the switch flips, and then it's Katie bar the door, and it's amazing. And we were talking before the show about you said you went to school with Jim Gibson, and he was the classic guy that was so quiet and so soft spoken and everything. But man, when he put his leg over the seat, that guy, he got with the program, and quick, and all those things that I talked about, and so the different types of racing, and that's something that I always loved to do, was all different types of motorcycle riding and racing. And when I was done with my motocross career, I went after the riding all the different kinds of racing, right? So then I go, I rode Speedway, I rode dirt track, I rode desert, rode Baja, rode some hare and hounds. and I rode an enduro, and I went out and had fun, and did lots of fun things on motorcycles, and I had some good success in some of those other ones, and had a good time. But I know and have experienced at high levels the differences of all those kinds of racing. And I was in the first couple of superbikers competitions, where they have part dirt and part pavement, and a little bit of motocross, a little bit of TT, a little bit of dirt track, a little bit of road race, and that was very fulfilling. And then a few years later, raced the Baja 1000, and you're going 100 and you're going faster in Baja than you are in the superbikers, which is a scary thought. So anyway, the
Baja. I've always dreamed of riding the Baja, but I never rode it. And you did. You rode the Baja. What was that like, riding the Baja 1000?
It's so intense, because it goes for so long, and the terrain changes so much, and because you're going as fast as you can on terrain that you cannot memorize it. What you put into your head that you're thinking about is, when you're pre-running, is you're learning what to look for, that around that next corner it is likely to be a problem, or if there's some big problem on the track, or on the course, I should say, not track, but when there's some big dip coming up, that if you hit it wrong, there's no way you're gonna not crash. And those are the spots you memorize. What does it look like heading up to them? How, and and then we back it off for 15 seconds till we pass this section. Now we pick up the speed again, and now it's just reacting to what's in front of us, because sometimes when you're going that fast, there's almost no way to make a correct reaction when some things come up on you. A crossroad that is in a blind corner or something. But you're going very fast, and your concentration level in Baja is so high. Your fatigue is not a physical fatigue from energy exertion. It's a physical fatigue that comes from just concentrating on not dying.
Oh yeah,
which
that's crazy.
Baja is a scary place. It's not like
I heard.
The ambulance is not going to come and pick you up, and take you to the hospital.
No, I heard a story. I have to tell you this. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but I heard a story that some of these people in Mexico, they don't like the people racing in their territory or whatever. So they get really mad. I don't know if this is true. And they dig big holes, and then they put like brush or something. So when the riders are riding, they don't see, it looks like they're riding over like a leaf or something, and they land up in the hole, and then they crash because like they're going fast, right? They're going, and they're booby trapping the courses.
Yeah, I never saw any of the sabotage places. They would usually be the rule that the guys that had a lot of experience that I teamed with, Tom Kelly, who was my teammate, and Dave Chase and Ken Parks, and they taught me a lot. And they said, look, if you ever see a bunch of people standing by some spot for no apparent reason, nobody ever stands in a spot for no apparent reason. Just slow down, take a look, protect yourself, and then pick up the pace. So, and what my understanding was, it wasn't because they didn't like the racers, but it was because they were bored just watching the riders ride by. They want to see them crash, which is a scarier thought. So, but I really enjoyed Mexico. I had some crazy experiences pre-running. The people were always very friendly. When you get out of the cities, they are dirt poor. I mean, dirt poor. And, maybe it's improved over the last, 35 years or whatever, but the starkness of poverty, really, I was surprised. I didn't think it would be that bad. But and the farther down you went, the worse it got. I think when you get to the very bottom of Baja, it's not so much like that. In the northern part, it's not quite so much like that. But in the middle, it's the people that live on the ranches out in the middle of nowhere. They're that's a almost like a old pilgrim life, for some of these people. But they're all very very friendly, very very nice, and it's a beautiful place. I know a lot of people relocate there and they're never coming back to the States. They're like, this is just too much of what I like here to go back to the United States.
In Mexico, you mean? In Mexico, Baja?
Yeah, in Mexico, yeah, in Baja, yeah, or in other on the mainland too, but more on Baja.
Yeah, it's pretty down there. It's pretty.
Yeah, and I had grown up riding in the desert, before I started racing motocross. So the race in Baja was not a big change of that. It was a lot faster than I had gone, coming up as a kid. But once I got used to it, I can't say that I would never do Baja again. But if I did, there would be nothing in my head that, okay, I want to win this. It would be just to do it, and maybe do it solo. Maybe I'll do it solo someday. So
good. We want to watch that. I'll join you. I'll be your teammate if you ever want to ride with a partner. All right.
Well, you can ride next to me, because if I do it solo, I mean, maybe I'll ride my motorcycle to the races and then race and then ride my motorcycle back. So, and okay, yeah,
and you'll be your own pit man. You fill the gas tank up every time.
I'll have to do one of those rental pits or something, where where you pay them, a couple of grand or something, and they have a pit for you, every 60 miles or something. So that'd be fun. But but the biggest point is motorcycles are like nothing else. Cars are great too, and lots of sports, and mountain bikes are great too. But there's nothing like motorcycle racing, and all the differences and variations. Hill climbing is fun, and trials is fun, and adventure riding is fun, and riding grass tracks or supercross track. All of it's fun, and you get to a certain age where you can't get, it's foolish to take to try to do some of the things you did before, not even if they're not that risky. You just don't do them enough to be comfortable at it. So.
Oh, that's true. So you raced in high school. I guess you were a high school Supercross rider when you went, and you're in Westminster. And is that how you got into motocross? Is that you were like racing on the high school motocross team? Because they had that all over Germany.
Yeah, high school motocross racing started right after I started racing motocross. I rode some mini bike races as a kid, and here and there, not a lot of them. But here and there when I could, when we got a few bucks, I could go to a little local track, and there was one by my house in Garden Grove, that little mini bike park that was about as big as a lot, that your house is on, and I literally is about as big as a hockey arena. The hockey rink was big as a hockey rink, and it was right next to the freeway called Garden Grove Mini Bike Park, and I used to race there. I even pushed my mini bike there to race before, and but I'd ride a little race here and there, and then once I started racing motocross, I tried to go to all the Southern California tracks and race different people. And then high school motocross started. The first one was our school district that I went to, Garden Grove School District, had an all district wide motocross race at Orange County Raceway, where they rented the track for all 7 high schools in our district. And so each of the 7 high schools pitted a team, and we all, each team raced against each other, and they had points, and to see who would win it or whatever. And anyway, that was pretty exciting when a school district can have it. And then it took off, and they started having, like whole counties would have a high school race, or and then they'd have state I won the California high school state championship, the expert state championship in 1974. So that was fun. And and the only high school races I raced after that were in 75 and 76. I rode some more, but only the district ones for my school. where I would race for my school. I didn't do any individual high school races after I won the '74 championship. So again, just for my high school. So because I was already riding nationals, and so I was me and a couple other guys, action guys. We were like top guys for our district wide school. I think there was like 3 or 4 guys that had AMA numbers, AMA pro numbers. So it was pretty competitive.
I guess if you raced in those races, I guess it was not fair because they had these pro riders coming to high school.
No, I was the right age. I was 16. Well, I was 15 for my first high school race, and so 15 and 16 and 17. So 15, 16, 17 is the years that I raced high school motocross. So, and I was still in school. So,
cool.
But I didn't make any money. I just, instead of getting a trophy, I just got a free entry to the next week. So if I went to the weekly motocross at Orange County, if I won, I'd say I don't want a trophy. Just give me a free entry for next week. And so they say paid free entry form, and I bring it back next week and just keep it in the glove box in the van, and then come back the next week and fill it out and just do that. If you win a trophy every week, you don't have to pay for racing except for gas. So that was cool.
That's cool. So I guess you're an average rider back in those days.
Yeah. You just and so I don't have very many trophies. I don't know what happened. I used to have a lot of trophies, but I don't know where they all went. Frankly, I have a few around the house here and there, and but I don't. I have the top of the first trophy I ever won. That's pretty cool. So
that's cool. And I have mine too, right here. Here's my first trophy I ever won. Look at that little guy. He's a little. I won that at Saddleback Park racing the minis with you, probably.
Yeah, you know what? I had the same trophy top on mine, exactly the same. It took them till the late '70s where they finally made them look like motocross bikes. People complaining that they're tired. Yeah, it's street bike doing a wheelie.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, it's the same one. So that stuff's just a blast, and a lot of people now, they still look back at those times, the '70s, and '80s is, late '60s to early '80s were the best times because all the sports were just growing, and that's why with Speedway, with Bruce Penhall. When he won Sean Moran won the long track title, and then Bruce Penhall won, I think, 81 and 82 world championship. In 82, he won it at the Coliseum, against Kenny Carter. Remember I was there. Yeah, oh, man, when Kenny Carter, and Kenny and remember, and before the show, remember I was talking about when you're in the dominant position, if the guy wants to fight for the position and he's in the weak spot,
not good.
He's an idiot. And Kenny Carter was an idiot. and he went down and he tried to, and he got thrown out, and Bruce stayed in, and I think And then I think that's what probably set Kenny off to go into a murder suicide or whatever that he did later on. That guy was a nut. So I remember, I used to. We were talking about Larry Huffman. So Larry Huff. I used to work for Larry Huffman, and
did you?
after. Yeah, he had a radio show called Motorcycle World that broadcast on FM stations all over the state of California, and I was like the Ed McMahon. I would laugh at all the jokes, and I'd crack a few myself, and then what I would do also is I knew lots of people in different kinds of racing, so on Sunday afternoons I would call around and I could get Grand Prix road race results. I get motocross, nationals and Supercross results and dirt track and U.S. road race, and I would have all these race results on Sunday night, so nobody had to wait for cycle news. And so this is before the internet. So, Larry would host a show and I'd be on there. I'd drive down to San Clemente every week, every Sunday night, and we'd do a show at from 10 to 11 every Sunday night. So Monday morning and going to work, I was like falling asleep. It was a great show. And, what a great announcer Larry is. And Larry, he showed me so much, through example and explanation and kind of talking and to, be a color commentator at some of the, the motocross and supercross races. I tried my hand at Speedway announcing and I sucked, man. I sucked so bad. And I think the reason I sucked was because he didn't let me do first division. I had to do third division. I didn't know any of those guys. I'm like, and they're and some of them are squids. And I can't go, God, what a squid. Until the whole crowd at Costa Mesa, look at that squid. That guy's an idiot. What do you think he's gonna do? So when I stopped myself, I probably should have been like that, and I would have probably been popular. But anyway, I enjoyed it. And Larry, whenever I did ride Speedway, he would pump me up pretty good for the crowd, and and I had. I wasn't a good Speedway rider at all. I was, a second division kind of, I was on the 40-yard line in second division, but I never, got any first division rides out of it. But I didn't do it that much. I did it just enough to be 40-yard line, and then I wouldn't do it for a while, and then I'd come back and have to, learn it all over again. I'd go ride a Supercross race or a national or something like that just to piddle around, and I'd get on a Speedway bike and hunch over, and you can't ride a Speedway bike hunched over. It can't be done. Yeah, so, but I did have a great time and at the Speedway, and one funny story is the Costa Mesa was amazing. The amount of surfer girls that would come to the races, and be walking around, just it was like almost like a high school football game, but just maybe a little bit older, and they're all walking around, and I took my wife to watch one, and she's looking at a lot of those girls walking around, and we just had a daughter, and she said, if I ever saw Courtney dressed like that and strutting around in front of the guys like that, she goes, I'd drag her home by the hair. And I'm like, oh, I kind of enjoy it.
We like that kind of thing, right? Sexy girls, ladies walking around with their tops and everything. It's good. But the women,
I said, I'm a motorcycle racer, so there's a reason I married a pretty woman. Okay, so no, you didn't dress like that, but you're beautiful. It was anyway. We enjoyed going there. A really funny story. So my son was maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something, and we're up in the bleachers above the pits. The pits. The one bleacher was right over the pit area at Costa Mesa, and I had a large Coke, a real large Coke. I'm sitting there, and I put it underneath my seat on the, where you put your feet, right? You put it right behind your feet on the walking parts underneath my seat. And my kid's 6 years old. He's just, playing around and doing all this stuff. And a lot of the racers and their pit crew would be underneath the bleachers watching the races from down right underneath the bleachers. And my son knocked over like a 32-ounce Coke on one of the racers' girlfriend mechanics. And we're maybe, halfway up the bleachers, and all of a sudden I feel somebody tugging on my pant leg, right? I'm like, I'm way up, we're 20 feet above the ground, right? And I feel somebody tugging, and I turn and I look at her, and there's this chick with long braids, right? And she's got a whole Coke running down her head and her face, and she goes, your kid spilled a Coke on me. And I'm like, so? What do you want me to do about it? I'm sorry. Anyway,
maybe she was going to pay for your Coke. Maybe she wanted to go to the concession stand.
You have some. And I think her boyfriend, husband, I think he was first division rider, and so yeah, if he's listening to the show, dude, sorry, okay. My kid kicked over. Anyway,
I think it was you, Warren. You're a troublemaker. I think that was you blaming your son.
No, because she even said your kid knocked the coat. For all I know, he reached under and poured it on her head. I don't know. if he bad.
like father, like son. Your son takes the same genes as the father, I guess.
And so the first speedway races that I would go to, it was maybe 1970, 71, and so Rick Woods, and Gene Woods was like a junior speedway guy. He was like my age, a lot younger than Rick, and but Rick Woods was one of the top guys, and the Bass brothers were kind of coming in, and I remember I think Mike Conley, I remember, was a speedway guy. I'm not. And a lot of names I remember, but I sometimes I lose association. Was that the Mike Conley that did this kind of racing or that kind of? I don't know. Anyway, and then and Lightning Larry Shaw and Bill Cody and Dub Farrell and and all those guys, and it was cool to go watch, and just the smell of methanol was just amazing. Still, I love that smell.
You got the castor oil and the methanol. That smelled like
castor oil.
Oh,
it was
castor oil. Nice.
So, but I raced, some at Costa Mesa, and they put me right in second division, and then make my third race ever in my life speedway at Costa Mesa. I was already on the 40-yard line. And so it made it kind of hard to ever win anything. I wanted to race scratch because in motocross, I'm used to lining up with 20 to 40 guys side by side and going into the first turn and not giving a shit and starting from the 40 in a handicap's a completely different gig, right? You're not next to anybody until maybe turn 3 if you're lucky. So the only advantage back there, the only advantage back there is you get a big run going into turn 1, compared to the guys that are on the 0, or the 10. So you can get a big run. Then you can carry that run down the back straightaway and make up a lot of ground pretty quick. So, and then going up to San Bernardino, and I think I did my speedway test at San Bernardino on a Thursday night, and that was probably the biggest crowd to watch a speedway test. Hey, there's this old Supercross rider. Guy's been riding nationals and Supercross, motocross for 10 years, and guess what? He's going to take a speedway test tonight. Oh, well, look, he's wearing shoulder pads, and motocross boots, and he's not wearing he's a motocross helmet and all this stuff. And anyway, that was, was it Warren Moon? Wasn't he the ref? Was that who I'm thinking
there
of?
Was Warren was the old ref, the early day, Warren Moon, and then he had Larry Moon, and he had his sons, all these moons. But Warren, I think, was the
Warren was the older ref. So that was who gave me my speedway test, So
Warren,
he throws the flag down, and you got to pitch it sideways and lay it down, And
how did your crash do? Did you crash good on a speedway bike when they said, "Okay, crash"? Did you do a good one?
Hey, I've laid it down 100 times in motocross. That was it. And speedway bikes laid down easy compared to a motocross bike. So you just sit your butt on the ground, and it just slides to a stop, real simple. So
yeah, I did that too, and it was easy. It was easy.
But I did, when I did ride the quarter mile second division at Long Beach, when they had the U.S. qualifier, and that was fun. I had a blast with that. I think I got second in the main behind Pat Hawley. Pat and Shane Hawley. They were in my school district. We raced against each other in the Garden Grove district motocross. So, and then they were riding speedway racing, and so I had a lot of friends in the Garden Grove, Westminster, Santa Ana, area that raced, Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley. Everybody kind of gets to know each other, and even if they did other kinds of racing, So
that's true. We had Terry I. Clanton. Do you remember him? He's the announcer at Costa Mesa.
Yeah, I'm good as but Terry. Yeah. So I remember he used to race for Whittier Honda. So he had a big ride in Tombstone just a few months ago, and I wanted to go there in the worst way, but just too many other things going on. I couldn't make it out there for that. But I fully intend to go to that next year and have a great time. Terry and I go back a long way, so I go back so long. I remember when Terry raced motocross, not when he was an announcer. So
he was at the LA Coliseum in '75, racing in that big Coliseum, the 125s.
Oh yeah. And Whittier Honda. So they had a pretty strong team back then, and and one of the things that we were talking earlier about bicycles, but it's like 13, 14, we'd ride our bicycles to all the motorcycle shops in Orange County, and we even rode from I lived right near Bolsa and Magnolia, and we rode down all the way to Balboa Island and Corona del Mar on our Stingrays.
So you go to the beach and then take the beach sidewalk all the way there, hang a left and go all the way to Balboa.
All the way there, all the way to Corona del Mar on Stingrays. And anyway, as long as one of the kids was a thief, and then he would be the one that went into the grocery store and came out with a pant full of food. It's like Animal House, when they go
to. See, that's what kids do. They were troublemakers. Well, Terry's still riding that. Terry is still riding that beach route today. Every time I go on Facebook, Terry's riding on that, going from Balboa all the way to Huntington Beach and then back.
He posts all of his Strava rides on there, so I'm gonna get him out on a bicycle one of these days, and we'll have a good time. So I think Bruce McDougall, the motocross factory Yamaha and Honda guy, he just rebuilt Terry's and his mom's house down in Huntington Beach, Costa Mesa, I guess, and so that's Terry's home base now. So and McDougall almost lost his house in that fire there that they Bruce. I don't know if you remember Bruce McDougall. So Bruce and his van are world famous, and Bruce and his van, surrounded by wildfire, made the cover of the Wall Street Journal in December.
Jeez.
And Bruce had that van since like '72 or something. Anyway, but is a lot of the motocross guys and motorcycle people go, Todd Peterson and all those guys. And Sean McConnell, who raced Speedway, him and Todd were good buddies. And Sean McConnell, he was first division guy for a long, long time. And but they were guys that I knew back from the early motocross days and a little bit of the mini bike stuff and everything. And we all kind of connect on Facebook a little bit, and it's fun there. We all kind of carried the same passion for decades and decades, And so I enjoy seeing pictures of those guys out at the Speedway. And, if I ever get back out again, I have to get out and, watch the races and see it.
Sean is still racing today. You can go out and see Sean. Actually, this year he didn't race, but maybe when they start back up again, hopefully soon, you'll see McConnell back out there. He's still riding at a high level for being an old guy like us. He's competing with the young kids. So he's doing good. Sean's a good rider.
Well, I want to go back to when I was talking about the, when I mentioned that Dennis Sagalos earlier. So when I was helping Larry do some announcing, I helped him announce the qualifier to race in the World Championship, the U.S. qualifier. That's when all the British League guys would all come back to the U.S. and then they race the top, U.S. based guys, and they wouldn't do it at Costa Mesa because that's nothing like World Championship stuff, on the big track. So they would do it at Long Beach, and so Dennis Sagalos was there, and they were interviewing Dennis Sagalos, and they asked him something about Kenny Carter, there, and Margot Sandona, John Sandona's wife, was at the field, and me and Larry Huffman were up in the tower, and Margot said something. Well, what about Kenny Carter? And Dennis Sagalos in front of the entire, all the crowd is packed, and Dennis Sagalos goes, "Everybody knows that Kenny Carter is a dick." and so this is like 84, maybe 85 or something, and this is. So you can't edit a microphone, when it's live, right? Anyway, so then the next night, that was on a Saturday night. So Sunday night, Larry has the radio show that I worked on. So I have to give the race report, and so I'm writing the race report, and I know that I can't say dick on the radio. So I said, and Dennis Sagalos referred to Kenny Carter as an abbreviated Richard.
Richard. Johnson, Wang, Willie Walker, Gonan.
An abbreviated Richard.
Richard.
Yeah.
Oh, Dennis is really funny guy. He's cool. He was on. Did you know he was on my show, Dennis Sagalos? He was on it a few before Christmas, and Dennis is a good.
So I never got to know him, but I can tell you that he was a pretty cool guy. I mean, really, all the racer guys in all the sports are by and large pretty cool guys. And again, while I never really hung around him that much or had a chance to meet him or interact, he seemed like a good guy and just a normal guy that loved racing motorcycles. And that picture of him where he's going about 800 miles an hour, full lock wheelie up, that Dennis Sagalos picture. That is as good of a motorcycle racing picture as I've ever seen. That is freaking getting after it. That is getting after it. So whenever you can be a full lock wheelie, there, that doesn't occur in nature very often. So.
No. He was definitely in the turn, like turn 1 and 2 or 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And he definitely hit like a hole, maybe a big rut, a big hole or something, and then he caught it up. While he was crossed up, he just rode that thing straight.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
One of my favorite pictures of myself, and I'd love to get the original. I don't even know if it exists, but it's I whole shot the Superbikers, where all the fastest guys from all the different kinds of racing in the world all come together, and they race that, half pavement, half dirt. And I whole shot, and it's maybe a 50, 60, 70 mile an hour, corner. I don't know. It was, fast. And I'm probably third gear wide open and a right-hander, and I'm standing up on the pegs. And I'm wheeling through bumps in a full lock on a motocross bike at probably 50 or 60 miles an hour. And you can't see my right hand in the picture, but you can see from my elbow that thing is tapped. and when you whole shot the world, literally when you whole shot the world, and you got it tapped full on, right-hander, full on wheelie, cross up, power slide through the bumps. Anyway, that was cool. That was my favorite of myself, but it still doesn't compare to Dennis Sagalos's picture. So,
but you were standing up doing that. That's pretty hard, and you were preparing for the right hand turn, doing the wheelie, going through the whoopie doo.
It was on the way. I was on the way out of the corner, so I was standing up to get. Well, like in Speedway, when you're in the straightaway, you start pushing on that right peg, right, and you kind of like this to get the thing lined up and driving. And I was trying to get that thing. I was riding a 500 two-stroke, fully built, and I'm in third gear and I'm pinned, and that's what a 60, 70, 80. I don't know. It's hauling ass, and I'm trying to get that thing to straighten out and drive, and it's sliding. And anyway,
but did you save it? You saved it? You saved it, right?
Oh yeah, hell yeah! If I'd have crashed, it wouldn't. I would have ignored it.
If you would have crashed, you would not be here because you'd be run over by 35 guys.
Yeah. That'd be a footnote in history. So.
We knew Warren Reid. Warren.
So as before we're talking about I know that Jack Milne was partners with Harry Oxley, right, to run Speedway when it first started and stuff. And Jack Milne, the world champion in 37 or 38 or something. I don't remember exactly, but I know it was in there. Yeah, okay. And then his brother Gordy Milne was one of the dominant guys leading up to the world championship in 38 or 9 or 40 or something when World War II broke out. So he, never really got to fulfill what seemed an inevitable world championship. And anyway, I over the years I read a lot of history and stuff about their racing and stuff, and so I both of those guys are on Wikipedia, so I'm reading the Gordy Milne Wikipedia entry, and his wife was like one of the most famous like burlesque dancers in history. Gordy Milne's wife, like world famous. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't remember her name, but I was like, whoa, dude had some action going. And he wasn't just a motorcycle racer. And then, fast forward decades and decades later, and my stepdad John R. He digitized a lot of my mom's dad, my grandfather's slides that he had from color slides from the 50s. My grandfather was a real amateur photographer, but he had color slides from the 50s, and so I'm looking at all these digitized colored pictures. And I see this one picture of a float at the Pasadena Rose Parade, and my mom said, "Well, there's your Aunt Lynette. She was Miss Inglewood on the Inglewood float in the Rose Parade." And I'm like, "Whoa!" And I go, "Look, right in the background of the float is Milne Brothers car dealership, owned by Jack and Gordy Milne." And right in the back of a picture from the 1954 Rose Parade, a picture of my aunt is Miss Inglewood, and right in the back is the Milne Brothers, car dealership in big giant, 12-foot high letters, So, and my grandfather was probably sitting on bleachers that Milne owned. I think he leased bleachers, yeah.
Jack was an amazing businessman. He was like a genius. That guy, he turned everything into gold. He was smart, all business.
Yeah, buy cheap, sell high, and just count. And if it ain't making money, figure out why it ain't making money. If it's not, get rid of it and go with something else that does. He seemed like a no bullshit kind of guy,
No,
I mean, I but my impression was that he was probably like Bob Hanna was, in motocross. So
yeah, I met Jack Milne a few times, and he's a very serious guy. I'm like, "Hi, Jack Milne, I'm Brian." And he's like, "Who are you? Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I want to meet you." And he's like, "Oh, okay, kid," and shake my hand, but. He didn't like people approaching him like that. He was a very serious dude.
Yeah, and that's I mean, is it? I think Bob Hanna was kind of like that. Bob was a nice guy if you got to know him, but he was an intense guy, and he didn't like the chit chat or too
No.
much, and as he got older, he still wanted to win, like he was, and he um you know created animus for his competitors, to keep him motivated. That's what kept him going. Hey, that's everybody tries to find their way to get this. Yeah, it's you work on your skills racing, but you think about how to get your brain in the right spot because everybody's
A
fast.
lot of right.
So
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, they have to think of negative things, to motivate them. And I have a video on my YouTube channel here somewhere. It's my number one most watched video as far as length goes. It has like 95% watch. It's called No Respect. No respect at all. And it's a story about having no respect and how it drove me to win my races when the promoters didn't put me on the program, when I got put on the sidelines, when I got pissed off, when I was getting mistreated. It stuck in my mind. And then when I raced, especially on those tracks, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tear everybody a new butthole and they're going to go down. And it really drove me because I got mad. And I used to always think of like this feeling. And it's a video I made. But it was true story. And when I got mad, I always win. So.
and that as a kid, when I wanted to race so bad, we just didn't have the money. It wasn't going to happen. And at least I got to ride. And so when I got a chance to ride, I rode a lot. And the what helped to propel me in racing was that I couldn't race when I wanted to. For years I couldn't race, and that when I finally could, I wanted to race everywhere. I was starting off racing local races, but I'm already thinking nationals, and that's all I'm thinking. I'm not thinking I want to win at this track every week. I was already thinking I'm going to go to this track and this track and this track and this. And I'm going to go to all these tracks, and and I'm going to take extra classes in high school early, my freshman and sophomore year, so that I have enough credits so I don't have to take hardly any classes my junior and senior year, so that I have more. So that after I get my license, I can go practice after school, and go riding. And so before that, I could only practice on the weekends, or if somebody took me to a night race. And once I got my truck, I was riding all the time and racing all the time, and at lots of tracks and against lots of different people and against the fastest guy at whatever track it was, and of course I had the close ones I went to the most, Saddleback and OCIR, but I went to Irwindale, sometimes I go down to Carlsbad a lot. I go to the dunes, a bit, and a few times out to the some races out at Inland Empire and different places, but I raced a lot, lots of different places, and drive up down to Speedway 117 by the Mexican border, up to Santa Maria, race sand tracks up there, and I drive out to Arizona and race against the guys in Phoenix, and take a friend and we drive to Phoenix and race. I was 16, 17. I'd drive to Phoenix and race and drive home.
Oh, cool. Well, you rode against the best, and I think we were talking about this before the show. I think we were talking all these really great. You didn't just race against the high school guys. I mean, you were racing against the top tier guys, the big guys, and you just you had so much competition because you had so many. These guys were not just a good name, but they were legendary in the sport forever. And you had to mix with these guys, and you had to try to win these guys. How did all that happen? I mean, it's hard when you have 10 or 15 guys at the top.
That's where I wanted to be, and I always gravitated toward the. When I first started, of course, 125 nationals and stuff because of my size too. I was pretty small, until I got to be about 18. I finally, got, tall enough and big enough to be reasonably competitive on a 250. So, but yeah, I wanted to race against the fastest guys, and that, so when I did, I didn't want to race against them just to be in the race. I didn't want to say I was in the race with them. I said I wanted to race with them, and I wanted to beat them, and I
Beat them.
I beat everybody at one time or another. I beat every single person in a head-to-head race, not just like, oh, they crashed and they finished behind you. I beat every of the fastest guys in the world, over, from the mid 70s to to probably mid 80, 85 at one time or another in a head-to-head race, and maybe on average, some of those Hall of Famer guys, finished ahead of me, but not every time, not even close. So, so my first year I got ninth in the 125 nationals, and then I got sixth, fifth, or fourth for the next 8 straight years. So I never finished worse than sixth for 8 straight years in the national championship. So,
but you raced, again, right? You raced the 250s.
That was 125, 250, and 500s. Different years, different bikes. So, so I got my rookie year was 75, and I got ninth in the national championship, and then in 76 I got sixth, and so the guys, in my second year I got sixth. The people that finished ahead of me were Bob Hanna, Marty Smith, Danny Laporte, Steve Wise, and Brock Glover. So,
I don't know those guys. They're not very good riders, are they?
And in 77 I got fourth, and that was Brock Glover, Danny Laporte, and Bob Hanna, and I got fourth. And
I've never heard of those guys. They're no good, are they?
Yeah, they were slouches. Anyway,
Bob Hanna.
79 it was Glover, Barnett, and Meyerskoff, and 80 it was Howerton, Bell, and Steve Wise, and I got fourth. And 81 I think I did. Anyway, 82 I got fourth again, and it was Donnie Hansen, Ricky Johnson, and Brock Glover.
Just nobody.
Yeah, a bunch of slouches. Yeah,
bunch of bums out there.
But when I raced Speedway, I never really got a chance to go and race with all the guys that were the fast guys in 85, 86, 87, Alan Christian and Kelly Moran and Dub Farrell and Mike Faria, and Bobby Schwartz, and God, I'll think of 20 names as soon as I said, I watched all those guys. I know what I knew what their proclivities were. And I always felt in my heart, if I just race every night, if I ride Wednesday, at Ventura, and I ride Thursday out in San Bernardino, and I go Friday at Costa Mesa. If I do that every week for 6 months, I'll be first division. I'll start dicing with these guys. And then I had 3 kids, and I owned my own business and a full-time job, and that wasn't going to happen. So. Yeah, but I already was planning out, how are you, because Speedway is not like motocross where you can go way on another part of the track and get a run on somebody, and dive, outbreak them going into a corner or use 2 or 3 corners in advance to do something. It's the same pattern every lap, and your passes sometimes are very subtle, and sometimes a pass at the finish line is just enough to win the race, but there's no way you're going to be ahead of the guy coming out of the next corner, by what you did to beat him across the line by 3 inches, when Warren Moon waved the checkered flag. So But I was already planning out how I was, my tactics for all of those guys in
But
my
those
head
guys are
anyway.
good. They're hard to
In
beat.
my
You
head,
have to really
it was
ride
all in
good
my
to
head,
beat those guys.
and probably no different than 50 of the kids in the bleachers watching the race thinking the same thing, And that someday, I'm going to be down there. I'm going to be on the field. I'm not going to be here watching. Yeah.
I raced a few of those guys, and you have to be on the gas, and they're really hard to beat. They're really good riders, and they're just like one after another after another. And
Yeah.
it's easier to be an armchair quarterback than to be in the arena with them in the track. It's more easy to
Yeah.
like be planning, but when you're on the track, it's a different ball game.
That's why there's more people in the stands than there is on the track.
There's a lot of great riders in the track. They all think they're good, but when you get on that track, it's different.
In my first speedway races that I went to at Costa Mesa, so the guy that took me was named Jim Williams. So he lived down the street. His sister Christy was our babysitter, and and still a family friend after over 5 decades now. And but Jim, real sharp guy, but he got dirt bikes early, and so he was kind of one of the first guys I saw with a motorcycle, not just a mini bike, and he was a little bit older. And anyway, it was pretty cool. He'd take me riding, take on my mini enduro. He took me to the races a couple of times so I could race, and take me to watch the speedway races when he'd go out there to Costa Mesa, So, but that, when in a single parent, that's the kind of things that. Me, I was a pretty outgoing kid. I kind of sought out, a lot of the people that were involved in motorcycles and stuff in the neighborhood, and around, and gravitated toward them. And a lot of them are really cool guys, like Jim and others that kind of take you under their wing and take you to the races. And then as your career kind of goes on and moves into other places, you realize later sometimes how valuable those little things were of some of those guys, and the Dennis and Wendy Blanton deciding to buy that CR 125 and take me racing, and Jim taking me riding, and then Christy got married to a guy that ran a cycle parts, motorcycle parts business, and so he was part of our riding group on the weekends, and Christy and him, bought me my first pair of leathers, leather pants, to race or to wear instead of just wearing blue jeans. All I ever wore was blue jeans before that, and until I got a pair of, leathers.
Motocross or Speedway? Was that motocross or?
Yeah. Speed. I never did Speedway until way after I was done racing motocross, but but that was just to ride in the desert, and maybe at a mini bike race here or there.
What was your injury? Did you get injured racing? We all get hurt. Yeah. We all get injured.
But so I have never had to have surgery on a joint in my life.
Good.
And during my nine years of racing, I only missed one national from an injury, and that I had dislocated my shoulder, and it just I didn't get surgery on it, but I had to miss that race and then race the next week. But at the first race of my 10th season at Anaheim Stadium, I got in a first turn crash and my leg was broken. Pretty good. That was pretty good. That was a bad break. And anyway, and then everybody that races, as you said, and we all know, we get hurt, doing nothing sometimes. And but I tweaked my ankles many times, my wrists, a bunch of times. I got arthritic parts that flare up when the weather changes real quick. It's not that if it's cold or if it's all of a sudden hot. It's just if the weather changes real quick, especially the pressure, and that, man, I can feel it, in different joints. but I keep moving, and it, as long as I get moving again, it's all right. So,
Did you
uh,
guys, did you, go ahead. Did you make a lot of money when you were racing
I make,
Supercross in those days?
yeah, I make good
Did
money.
you guys do good?
Yeah, very good. Much better than I would have if I had not raced. Uh, but it was good money, and I was able to kind of set myself up decent in life. But as much as anything, motorcycles. I learned so much from motorcycles and from all of the people that were part of our riding group growing up. That all these men that were part of our group. Kind of there wasn't my dad wasn't around, but they would help me out with my bike, but they would show me, hey, here's how you clean your filter, here's how you adjust your brake, here's how if you're going to put the wrench on it, hold it like this, do, and just little things, and then gradually, you start learning to do more and more on the engines, and how do they work, and that's the kind of stuff I took an interest in school, and so drafting class and electronics class and machine shop and welding shop and plastics and fiberglass and auto repair and auto body, and and anyway, and that's the stuff that I never was afraid to kind of jump in and figure out how something worked. And that set me up for my life at Honda. When they hired me as a tech rep. Where I would go to dealers and help them fix things. And I already had a great foundation, and then Honda has tons of information. You can you have a real fast learning curve when you work for Honda, because there's so much information out there to make everybody that works there incredibly knowledgeable about technical things, because we make technical products. And I say we make what Honda made, even though I'm retired, the mentality still stays there.
Well, Honda is a really top-notch company. They make the generators and they make all these electronics. And Honda really is known as the premium quality of all these different kinds of things. Honda has the biggest name, the best name, and the most technologically advanced products. So Honda is very high in the level of all these different things. They're very good.
And that was the reason I applied at Honda, is because they're such high quality, and I can respect them and everything. And if I look, it's late for me. It's way past my bedtime. So I go to bed early, but it's been a long day, long couple of months actually. But the representing Honda was really good for me. And so that I've said in other interviews and in different places, but it's the only job application I ever filled out in my entire life was to Honda.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yes.
Hey, Warren, is there any advice you could give any young riders, whether they're motocross, speedway? There's probably a few young riders that like to watch the show, I know. So is there any kind of racing advice or any kind of advice from a retired top pro rider like yourself? Is there anything that maybe help any young riders that are trying to, progress in their sports?
Yeah, just a couple of basic things. And the very first of all is seat time. The more you ride with purpose, the faster you'll get. Riding without purpose is nothing's happening. When you ride with purpose and ride a lot. It doesn't matter if it's speedway or desert or motocross or whatever. and always pick some small part to improve on, no matter what, just even if it's just for a couple laps, try to, for example, speedway. If you get a chance to go on a speedway, let's say the track on practice day completely terrible. Well, you know what? Someday you're going to have a race on a track that is completely terrible. It's inevitable. Someday there's going to be a track with holes in it. Someday the only line that you can ever pass, you make a pass in, has a big hole in it. Someday that will happen. If you can, don't always miss the hole. Aim for the hole. Go for it. And go only on the outside. Try to, go inside and make the left edge of your front tire scrape against the pole, the bar on the inside. See if you can go the whole way, or at least through the apex part of the corner with the side of your tire touching that bar, because nobody can go inside of that, right? without taking you out and getting thrown out of the race, right? So if your tire's on the pole, they get thrown out if they take you out. So that's a strategy. Anyway, my point is thinking all the time, and the passion, and the guys that win are almost always in better shape than the other people, and at a higher level of conditioning than most of the other guys. And whether it's just from lots of seat time and they have the riding condition, or they do other training, but you got to be in good shape, and your mentality has to be the only reason you're on the starting line is to win. And if that's not the reason, then go pit for somebody, because you're in the wrong place. So.
Well, we have a lot of good young riders, and they're really these guys are hardcore. There's a lot of young riders, like junior riders in the Speedway specifically, and young Speedway riders are really good, and they're really mentality is kind of like what you're talking about. They're very serious. They have that high level of thinking, and they're going to go really far. So these guys, these young kids coming up, have this they're we were kind of different generation. And these young kids are very methodical and like machines. They're very different than we were.
Well, I hope as long as they have that intensity, like I said, as long as you got that intensity, and because fire will get you farther than you have to temper it with common sense, but you got to have that fire, in your belly. It doesn't have to always be fire right here in the throttle hand, but it's got to be in your belly. Got to be there, and make it happen. If it's not there, make it happen. And your dad's not going to make it happen. Your mom, your friends. You're the one that's got to give yourself indigestion.
That's true. Yeah, I talked to a lot of young riders, and if you don't have it in your heart, I keep telling these guys, if you don't have it in your heart, you're not going to be able to get it. It has to come, the fire has to come from within, and you've got to create that, through your drive, not through your family or your name. There's some famous riders with big names. It doesn't matter. They're out. It's what's going on in your heart and your drive. That's the only thing that matters as a racer.
And the most important, I think, mindset for any racer of any kind of racing, too, is have a brain routine as you go to the line, and that's something that needs to be practiced too, especially in Speedway, where the start is more important than any other kind of motorcycle racing, and is have a brain routine going to the line, because there's going to be lots of things that distract your concentration on the line. There's going to be sometimes somebody's going to throw us a Coke. There's going to be a time the guy next to you hits the tape. There's going to be a time the guy next to you keeps flinching. It keeps, even if they're not moving, they keep flinching, and you're going that's your mind has to take where you're only on the tape, you're only on the gate. If you're motocross, you're only on the flag if it's dirt track, and your reaction is already set. And the purpose of that reaction is to get out of the gate driving as hard as you can, and push everybody wide in turn one, and don't open up the inside for the guy that's slowed and dove under you. It's basic stuff. And you have to plan that stuff in your head all the time, and make it so that you know what to do without having to strategize in the middle of the race.
I think the movie on any Sunday in 1972, they said it best. When you're preparing to race, you must put on your race face. I mean, everything else is a blur, and you focus specifically on your race, the tapes, the start, like you just said, everything else, the situation with your girlfriend or whatever, like all that stuff is gone. And once you get on that bike, you put the helmet on, you start, you're going to the line to get bump started, say on a speedway. It's pure focus at that point. There's no playing around. There's no like, I got in a fight with my friend or my mom was yelling at me or whatever. There's none of that. It's just purely focusing. And once you get on that track, it's showtime, at that point.
And you only have, at that point, you only have control over one person. That's yourself, right? Yeah. And yeah, that intensity is cool, and I did enjoy the starts, watching the starts in Speedway, especially because especially at Costa Mesa, because it's what, 20 yards to the first turn, 25 yards to the first turn. I mean, that's short, that is really short. Yeah, and but again, any young guy, intensity and practice that stuff, but also you do have to have fun practicing and do it with other people. Sometimes you go play riding. I used to see Alan Christian and Rich Eierstedt out riding dirt bikes all the time. Just having fun. And when Alan was one of the main Speedway guys, and he, and something. So my cousins that live in Northern California, one time I was talking to my cousin, and he goes, I told him I was doing Speedway. Of course he knew, I rode Nationals, Motocross, Supercross, and he said, you know Alan Christian from race? I go, well, yeah. I mean, I say hi to him once in a while. He goes, you tell him Jack Malugin said hi. I go, Alan Christian? He goes, oh yeah. And so this is Northern California, right near Tahoe and Reno and all that. So I go up to Alan Christian, and we kind of, we'd only just said hi or little chits in there. But I'll tell you what, after I told Alan Christian, I said, hey, my cousin Jack Malugin said hi. And my street creds with Alan Christian, I didn't have street creds because I was a motocross, national guy. I had street creds because my cousin Jack Malugin was his buddy when he raced, motorcycles up in Northern California. And that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. And Paul Orlandi also, he was a Speedway guy from Northern California, so he was a good friend of my cousin Jack's. Nice. And Kurt, my cousin too. Yeah, both of them, Jack and Kurt, both raced a lot. And they knew a lot of, they knew them, the Magoo's from Danny Chandler, Magoo Chandler. They were friends with them, and they knew Alan Christian and Paul Orlandi, and my cousin Kurt raced against Danny Turner, who was, third in the national championship in motocross one year. So my getting into racing was just coincidental, because my cousins were a good bit older than I was.
So anyway, Alan Christian wasn't impressed by your motocross credentials. He was impressed by the people that he knew and you knew. That raised it right there. Not that your name.
Here's my impression. When I probably very first showed up, he probably was impressed because of what I'd done in motocross or supercross. But then as soon as he saw me ride, I think he was not impressed anymore.
Well, Terry I. Clanton, he told me that you motocross.
Yeah, we rode funny. We did stuff different. I know that I did stuff different in the corner. I tended to almost park it too much. Right at the apex, and I had trouble keeping drive going. But I was getting it figured out. But I impressed Billy Hamill. He was a junior Speedway guy when I was doing it. So he said some nice things about my Speedway riding. On Facebook one time on some posts that we were in common. But anyway, I know better. I was kind of a spaz. I just had fun. But I know that if I had the time, I could have, I could have been up there, guys, with those front guys, just because that's where my head was, you know.
Well, you had all the race mentality and experience. Terry I. Clanton, he told me he was on the show about a few weeks ago, and he told me, "Oh, the motocross riders never make good speedway riders." And I was thinking of you, and he said,
And
"But
I wasn't. He was exactly right because I wasn't very good,
I
but
think he
I could.
was, he was
So
referring to you, maybe." But he said
the
he said that you motocrossers, when you get up to the line, you guys are really good gators. So you guys have the really when you're lining up with a bunch of guys, you guys really know how to like pop that clutch and go to the first turn fast. So you guys are really good about the starts of the race, but during the race maybe not as good. But the starts were really great.
Yeah, well, he's pretty much right. But we would have figured it out. But I know I've seen results from the late '60s, early '70s, and the Bass brothers are riding motocross.
Were
So
they?
those guys, yeah, I've seen their results. I've seen the results in Southern
Wow.
California from late '60s, maybe '70, '71 at the latest, maybe. But I know, like in that like '68 to '72 time frame, is when I'm thinking that I've seen their names and results in the expert class. You know, so
Jeez. Well,
yeah,
I
and Bobby
guess they were
Schwartz,
pretty
I
good
think.
riders.
Yeah, I think Bobby Schwartz. I saw his name too, and and Sonny Nutter was a good all around rider. Of course, Sammy Tanner and the see who else. I know Jim Fishback was a desert guy, but he was also a good Division I speedway guy. But the guy was gigantic. If he got to start, I I I've not seen any other guy in speedway that could have moved Jim Fishback off the line. No way.
No,
No.
he was an animal. That guy was an animal.
Yeah. So, but a real fun guy, real nice guy. And so I raced against him in the Baja 1000. What a competitor, what a competitor. Yeah. When my bike was broke, he rode by when my bike's broke, in the middle of the night, he's going, doing about 80 miles an hour past my pit. I'm like, you bastard, I'm going to get you.
He was a famous desert rider. Jim Fishback was famous. He was really famous.
Yeah, well, in the Baja 1000 I rode, his team got second, and my team got fourth. They beat us. So, no, his team got third. His team got third, and my team got fourth. And
Not bad.
but yeah, but yeah, we the race was 1,000 miles long, right? And I didn't even see him until like mile 800. So
No worry, no worry. I raced against him one of my first speedway races when I was an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
He was
So
a mean guy.
I led you to like mile 800, so I got the whole shot, right?
Yeah. So he caught up to you at the 800-mile mark. Jim did.
Yeah. Well, yeah. After my bike broke for the third time in 60 miles, but anyway. Hey Jim, my bike broke twice. Okay, front brake. I lost the front brake locked up, and just
Jim was no good. He would have to pass you only when you had three bike brakes and 160 miles.
Yeah, he was. He was fast. He was. He was the kind of guy though that my impression was he rode just fast enough for the first. Him and his teammate rode just fast enough for the first half, knowing that most people start having problems and or riding to prevent problems when you get 18, 19, 20 hours into the race, right? So yeah, he was a sharp, he was a desert guy, he was a cunning motorcycle competitor. So yeah,
behind that guy was good.
Behind that, a bull rider kind of persona that he, gave out. I think he was pretty cunning. So
smart guy. He was tough. He was scary. He was a big fat guy when he was in Speedway. He was a big dude, and if he sat on you, he would kill you. So he was big.
Oh yeah, he was strong. So you had to find another way around them, you know. Yeah, you better be fast on the cushion if you're gonna go around them. So
Oh, he was scary. I was mentioning one of my first D1 races was against Fishbeck when I was only like 16 or 17. I was a skinny little toothpick guy and very shy, like most young boys are. And I'm racing against all these people that I used to watch in the stands because I like to go to Speedway. And so here I am, like freaking out. I turn around and there was Jim Fishbeck behind me on the starting line. And I was like looking at Jim. He had that beard and he looked like a mountain man and stuff. He was really
yeah,
nasty. And he goes like this. He goes, I was like, oh God.
he shaves by hammering his whiskers in and biting them off. So on the inside. So.
I thought he pulled them off one by one. He's like an animal guy.
With needle nose. Yeah.
He was a nasty guy. But I have the video, and I think I never went so fast in my life. I think I won that race by like by half a lap. Almost, I think Sagalos was in that race, Fishbeck was in that race, and all these guys were in that race. And I literally was scared to death. I mean, I was scared to be caught by Fishbeck. So I have the video. It's on my channel if you want to go see it. It's here on YouTube.
Oh.
And you can go see it. I'm not joking. I'm serious. I got to find out what video it is. It's on my playlist on my personal races. I have a playlist. But Fishbeck scared me so bad. I just opened it up and I was wide open the whole thing. It was a handicap. And I just pulled away from the whole field. And I was like, I couldn't believe it.
Was that a lot of Super 8 movies that were converted to digital or?
Yeah, it was. It was. And I went ahead and put it on my YouTube because I literally I wasn't that good of a rider, to be honest with you. I did have a fast bike because I had Jerry Fairchild, which was Dub Farrell's mechanic. He tuned my bike and made it really fast. I had really one of the best bikes in Speedway, really one of them. And it was fast. So when I really wanted to turn it loose, that bike was like a lightning. And I was fast because I was scared of Jim Fishbeck, not because I was good.
Motivation, my friend. So, yeah.
He scared the shit out of me. And I was like, Jim, I thought was going to kill me. I could just picture Jim like running into me, like squishing me in the wall or something. So I said, he's not going to do that. I made a video blog about that on my YouTube. Actually, there's a video that I actually made about that race. It's called like Jim Fishbeck or something, Racing Jim Fishbeck or something. And he scared the daylights out of me. I mean, he was like an animal. Like he was like not human. He was like a monster or something.
Yeah. It's it's funny. There was no real big guys in motocross like that. But I remember Jeff Ward made the comment one time about Mark Barnett that everybody else would go to the staging area to go out, to get on the gate, and you'd have your gloves, stuck in between the brake and the throttle cable or something down in front, and you might have your helmet on, but you definitely didn't have your goggles or your mouth guard, on. And Barnett would come to the staging area before he went to the gate, and he'd have his gloves on and his goggles and his mouth guard, and he's frothing at the mouth like a rabid dog, just like, I want to kill you guys. And he wasn't a big guy, but he was real strong though. He was muscular build, even though he wasn't a tall guy. But he showed up ready to race, boy. I tell you what, his routine was just just grit his teeth and ready to go.
Well, that gets you like psyched out. I think that's his psych out. He's trying to really psych everybody out, like, oh, watch out,
Yeah, he wasn't talking to nobody.
No.
Yeah.
No. That's good. That's good. I won a big race, a big championship race at the City of Industry a few years ago, and all the guys were talking. All the guys were like, I'm going to win this. It was a one race championship, track championship. And I was sitting there like listening to all these guys, and they're like, "I'm gonna win! I'm gonna go faster into the first turn," and I just like shut my mouth, and I just like I'm just gonna shut the heck up, and I focusing on the race, like you said, and I don't care about the talk. I don't want to talk to nobody. I'm just thinking, what am I gonna do at the line? What am I gonna do at the first turn? How am I gonna do this? You know, these guys. And the race went on, and all these guys, young guys, like 18 years old, 19-year-old kids, they're like, you know, crashing into each other and stuff. And
Yeah.
I just took the pole, and I won that thing. So, it's better not to talk. It's better just to focus on your race.
Yeah. So my best speedway race that I ever had was the second division championship up in Santa Maria. And it was smaller than Costa Mesa, and if you can imagine that, it was really. And I remember Bill Cody said that he had raced there before, and he goes, "Here, let me give you this sprocket. I used this, 10 years ago when I raced up there, and I haven't used it since here." And he gave me this.
What was it, like a 75 or 76?
Well, that's when he used it. I used it in like 85 and 86.
The sprocket size, was it like a 75 or 76?
I don't know. It was only a little bit smaller than the rim. So and I had to buy a new chain. I had to buy a new chain because I didn't have a chain long enough. And anyway, so I drove up there and so Ronnie Corey and Furman, is it his name? No, what was anyway, but Ronnie Corey was the fastest, the other guy besides me, and anyway, yeah, each guy had 5 heats, right? And you got 3 points, 2, 1, 0, right? And I max pointed I won all 5 of my heats, so I had a perfect score. But for the main event, they put out like the lottery hat, for gate pick. I'm like, it was a new ref, I'm like, bullshit. I go, I had 15 points. I get to pick. He goes, no, you get a draw. I go, no, I won all 5. That means everybody here, the top 4 point getters, I've beat them all already. I get first pick of the gate. And the track was really tight and small, and it was super rough. And I was road racing it, or on the inside on the pole, road race. I wasn't even sliding. And
you're just two-wheeling it.
Yeah, because it was too rough, but the guy wouldn't budge. The ref wouldn't budge. Anyway, I think he didn't want to admit that he was wrong. But anyway, I picked gate 4. I'm like, are you kidding? And anyway, and so and Ronnie, I think Ronnie Corey had he had 2 or I don't remember, but I know the other 2 guys. It might have been Louis Kasuth and another guy maybe. But anyway, they overshot the first turn, and Ronnie Corey's in the lead, and I tucked in behind those other 2 guys. I was right behind him, and he's almost crashing his brains out in every corner just because of all the holes. And I'm just two-wheeler on the inside, and I'm getting so close, and I just couldn't get him, and he won. So anyway, but he had a great career riding British League Speedway and stuff and everything, and he, but remember, at that time I'm like 26, 27 years old, and I'm an old guy, compared to these 18, 19-year-old kids, 17. So, but it was fun to race, with those guys, and I had a good time. And then anyway, after the races were over, I picked up my money, and I drove to the 7-Eleven, and I got a box of chocolate chemical donuts and a 6-pack of Diet Mountain Dew, and I drove back to Orange County after the race. So,
well, anyway. It's no shame to get in second place to Ronnie Corey, because that guy, he had quite the career, and Ronnie was an amazing speedway rider. So that was a good race.
Yeah, well, if it would have been smooth, I wouldn't have had the success in the heat races that I had. I was just smarter than them. That was one where cunning and logic, strategy beat out raw enthusiasm until the main event anyway. But he showed why he was a great rider in that main event. So.
Well, you had all that Supercross and Motocross experience riding through the berms and the ruts and everything. So I was
Yeah,
like,
well,
no problem,
berm,
no problem.
if there was a berm, it wouldn't even have been a race. I would have won by a mile. But I at least knew how to. I at least knew how to ride through the swamp. So,
Yeah.
and
Well,
and and that was my hometown. I was born only a couple of miles from that track, so that was kind of cool to go to. So.
where were you born? Like Solvang or something?
No, Santa Maria, right in Santa Maria.
Oh, you were born in Santa Maria. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I have family that live up in Solvang, not too far away, 20 minutes or something.
I think I was thinking about Anderson's split pea soup in the news the last couple of days. The Anderson split pea soup restaurant there.
Yeah,
Solvang,
the off ramp there.
Yeah, that was in the news the other day. So.
What happened? What was that going on?
I don't know. Maybe it's for sale or something, or how they're dealing with COVID or something. Yeah.
Oh, not good. Not good. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a beautiful area up there in Solvang and Santa Maria and Montecito down in Santa Barbara area. All that area is really nice. It's really pretty.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I know. I met a lot of great people everywhere that I've been. I mean, from all parts of the world and certainly all parts of the country. And this year, I fully intend to hit the last 2 of the 50 states that I haven't been in. I've been in and driven in and done something in every 48 of the 50 states. So this year will be 49.
What 2 states are you going to go to? What are the last 2 states?
North and South Dakota. I've never driven through them. I've been, I've always crossed the country south of South Dakota. So.
Don't they have Mount Rushmore there? Isn't that one of those places, Mount Rushmore there?
Yeah, they do. And I don't know what's in North Dakota. Probably nothing, but I don't, I'll go see. I'll go see the Fargo Sarcasm Museum in Fargo, North Dakota. Right.
Nice.
And listen to people talk funny. So.
Very good. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or anything else that I missed? Because I probably missed something.
I got a couple of books in me, so I'm not going to tell everything. But even if I told you everything I can think of now, I could still think of 100 more things tomorrow. So, no, most of all, and what I enjoy with these is just motorcycles in general. Motorcycles are, there's going to be a lot of advantages for when they go electric, but the disadvantage will be the learning that all the kids, in order to have fun, you have to learn how something mechanical works. Electricity, you have to understand the physics because you can't see an electron move. And you can see what it makes move, but you can't see it move. You don't see an explosion of gasoline driving a piston down, rotating a crankshaft, rotating, a main shaft, a counter shaft, and a rear wheel, through a chain. You can see all that stuff happen. You can understand how fuel, flows through a carburetor and how it picks up vapor and just the right time it explodes in the spark. And you can see all that. With electric, you have a battery and electric motor, and you don't see the electrons moving. And that there's something going to be lost from the just in understanding that people have of the physical world and how it moves and works. And instead of like with a computer, all these things that happen, it's all physics because you can't see those electrons moving. You can just see the result of the electrons moving. And motorcycles are still a thrill and that, but the mechanical side and feeling how an engine is running, I can't feel the performance of a battery. It's either low or it's not, you know, and I mean, you know, my rheostat either works or it doesn't, you know, but an engine, oh, you know, yeah, I can change this, I can change that, I can do that, you know, you are forced to think so much, and and that's, I don't know, you know, maybe I'm philosophizing with myself on things I want to make sure my grandkids understand, you know, as they get older, that, you know, that physical touch, that physical understanding that of how things work and fit, and how you make your life better by on the physical side to go along with the mental side. That, you know, doing stuff on the physical side helps the mental side. So
That's true.
anyway, there's my
Yeah.
here's my philosophy for the day. But
There's not a lot of motorcycle tracks.
The greatest fun in the world. So
Yeah, I never thought about that. That is really cool about how, you know, I took in Garden Grove, next to where you live, I took an engine building class, and there's so much to learn about, you know, engines, tearing them down, all the physical parts to an engine. You know, this part works this part, and this part moves this part. There's a zillion things really to an engine if you like look at it. And to the electric, there's nothing, you know, just the molecules and things.
It's happening. All that electron movement is happening, and it is energy, but you can't see it.
Can't see it.
You can't see it happening.
You can't fix it. I mean, like an engine, you can physically tear the crankcase apart, and you can see the rod, and you can see the piston, the rings. You know, you got to hone the barrel's scratched, you know, and you can see all this physical evidence. The valves need to be replaced or seated in. The valves need to be tight, you know, go in seat nice, and the valve sleeve's worn out, and you have to replace the valve sleeve. It's too much loose for the valves. It has to be changed. I mean, there's all these physical parts to the engine versus the other one.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, that's so my I write a little bit too. I wrote a story about my good friend Marty Smith, who him and his wife passed away last year. It'll be in the March issue of Motocross Action. So if anybody gets, you know, hard copies of Motocross Action, the Marty Smith, my story to Marty Smith and Marty's children and friends, you know, that raced with him, or, you know, everything. That was kind of the basis. And, you know, he and I were teammates, and he was, you know, a big, you know, we were great friends and everything. And he was a big part of my life, as he was for so many people coming up. And so that's I'm very anxious to see that come out. I put a lot of my heart and soul, and the people that I talked to, you know, for the race that were at the memorial race in October, all felt, you know, the same way, you know, especially as children. You know, their children lost their parents, you know, and that's you know, we lost an icon to our sport and a friend, but they lost their parents. That, you know,
worse.
That's
hard.
You know, but anyway, I tried really hard to, you know, capture what Marty and Nancy meant to everybody in motorcycling and family, and just people that, you know, they knew. And you know, Marty's daughter-in-law had no idea that her father-in-law how big he was until after he passed away, and Facebook just became like, and she had no idea. And
Marty Smith, he was big. He was big time. He was like one of the best. I mean, this guy was big.
But she only knew that she loved her father-in-law, you know, and what a great person he was. And that, you know, that's you know, and you know, Marty's son and daughters, you know, talk the same way about him, and all of his close friends, you know, and Billy Urban and Brock Glover and Scott Burnworth and, you know, Bruce McDougall and you know, and and then my stepdad, who I spoke of, who, I'm very, very close with, and learned so much and benefited from his presence, in our lives, growing up and still. And, he was Marty's mechanic for 2 of Marty's championships, 75 and 76. So my rookie year, my sophomore year, or Marty's rookie year, and then my rookie year was the next year. And so John R. was his mechanic for those first 2 championships. And so our whole family, connection with Marty and friend and, and family, that connection is so unique in any sport, let alone, motorcycle racing and for on the racing side and the friend side and the mechanic side and the factory side and all that, to have those connections is, I tried to kind of capture that. But when I talked about John R., I talked, all the mechanics were older than the riders. These younger riders were, as we talked about how wild and crazy, these teenager and young and early 20s, motorcycle racers are. And these mechanics were, they were more methodical personalities. That's why they're the mechanics, just as intense. Obviously, they wouldn't be at that level, but they have to think absolutely, precisely on race day for that, to get that bike working the way it's supposed to, while all this craziness is going around, going around them. And, and I tried to kind of, and I, in my conversations with John R. right after Marty and Nancy's accident, and my brother's conversations with John R. and different things that he wrote. And I tried to put together that feeling that he had of all those decades from before of building that bike that beat the fastest people in the world, with the best rider, and what that meant, and what he was thinking back then, and what he was remembering now that he was thinking then, and he's remembering it again, looking at the parts of the engine. He still had the parts from the engine, from a Grand Prix. He still had the parts. He knew right where they were. And,
very good.
Anyway,
how many championships did Marty win? He was always winning. I mean, Marty was like insane.
Yeah, he won 3 national championships. So yeah, he won the 2 125 championships, and then he won the 500 national championship in '77, and 76 he was 3rd in the 125 world championship and 2nd in the 125 U.S. national championship in the same year. So he was flying back and forth to Europe, racing world championships, and he missed a bunch of races because some of them were the same weekends as U.S. So
wow.
Anyway, yeah, impressive, impressive. But he was, for his iconic and everything racing, he was a family man. That was his whole life. So
nice,
good guy.
I always read about him. It was always like, he's winning. I mean, he always was like on top. That guy was always at the top. I mean, he never went down. I mean, as far as when he's racing, I'd always see his name. I got tired of seeing his name. It was so much.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't. He was good at winning. Yes, he really was, and he was pivotal. A lot of guys come around in the sport and change it. And Marty was the guy that changed it. Changed a lot of the technique and cornering styles, and just as Bruce and that whole contingent of American Speedway riders, when they went to British League and learned, took their competitive with each other and took it over there. We're going to go race them on their, go race them in their yard. That's like picking a fight with the bully, the neighborhood bully in his front yard. That's I mean, that's badass. That is badass. That is badass.
That is bad. Well, we have a lot of badass riders, that's for sure. And they went ahead and did that. They just
we're
went
Americans.
out and beat them in their own
We're Americans. That's what we do.
Well, I always tell the young riders, you are an American and you must, remember that. You're not just a guy from Guatemala or something. You're an American and you must perform at that level like an American because we expect this high level. We're not like, we don't expect the last places very much. So I tell the young riders just mentally, if you go to Europe or wherever, you must focus on being the best. Don't think about being there just to be waving at the crowd or being taking pictures that you're on the Speedway team, but you're there to win and to be an American rider and to be at the top because that's the level that we expect of ourselves.
Yeah, there is that mentality, and the rest of the world knows it. And hey, man, you might as well use it for your advantage. So
that's right.
Hopefully that spirit never goes away. So
I hope not, because we should be proud of who we are, and not proud in a bad way, but proud in a good way, and use it to our advantage, and try to be successful. Just use it for success, not for pride. But we should be proud that we have a heritage like that, and we should take advantage of it, and be the best. I mean, look at Segalos, Penhall, Ronnie Corey, all these guys, Ronnie Preston. I mean, it goes on and on. The Moran brothers, they went over there on their turf and they kicked some serious butt, They went over there and just became stars amongst stars.
Yeah, anyway, motorcycles are just a great thing, and I encourage everybody to ride them.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for being on our show, Warren, tonight, and I really learned a lot from you. So it was
I
great.
enjoyed it. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for hosting it and for making this medium. It was great.
I'm sorry to keep you up past your bedtime, though. Sorry about that. Get some sleep.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Brian. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, you got it. Thank you so much. That's Warren Reid. Do you know Warren Reid? He's a very cool guy, and he was a famous motocross and supercross rider. That guy's really good. So we really appreciate the time. We kept him up a little bit past his bedtime tonight, so apologize about that. But we had a good time with Warren Reid, and he is an amazing rider. I always remember Larry Huffman announcing, and Warren Reid's in the lead. I always remembered Warren Reid's name from Larry Huffman because I guess they're friends. And Larry Huffman liked talking about Warren Reid, and he's really a famous rider. I mean, he didn't back down to nobody. I mean, he raced with the very best of the best. He didn't go like with the low end guys. I mean, Warren Reid was really a top competitor, and he's a really great guy today. So he's always been a high level, high intensity guy. And if I was a young rider in motocross, I would not want to ride against Warren Reid. He was good. So we really respect Warren. And when Warren wanted to do the show, I was very happy that Warren wanted to come on, and he has a lot of knowledge and a lot of things. He was in Speedway motocross. He's raced the Baja 1000. I mean, that guy did everything, Warren Reid. So it was a lot of fun. And next week we have the motor mouth, Larry Huffman, on the show. I'm going to get on that guy, and we're going to talk to Larry, and we have a bunch of other riders, and we're going to have some fun. So thank you so much for spending this time with us at the Beehive, talking with Warren Reid. We had a talk with Warren Reid, the amazing Warren Reid. He was good. He said his name wasn't Ryan, but he's was an amazing rider. And like I say, he had a good run in his day. And, he's just a great guy. I see kind of Warren's talk on Facebook, and he's really a bright guy. I mean, he's always thinking. Warren has an incredible mind, and it's always going. So we appreciate Warren Reid on the show, and we just want to thank you for enjoying the show, for spending some time with us, and for being in the Beehive tonight. And we're going to have a show, so hang on. And thank you so much for your time. Like the channel if you like the channel, and subscribe if you like it. And we're going to do, like I say, lots of more Speedway. We're going to have a lot of fun. So thank you so much for joining us. Ride your motorcycle safe. Stay on two wheels and never crash if you can. So thank you so much from the